First thing on the meeting is approval of the March 23rd minutes. Can I have a motion for that? Betty, second. Danny, thank you. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, if not, please vote. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to informational items. The first one's the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission minutes. Is there anybody have any questions on those? Okay, moving on to unsafe structures. Any questions? Okay, we're at the development summary. Questions on those? And last is the Peoria County Comprehensive Plan. Well, I tell you what, the first three we'll go ahead and receive and file. We're on the Peoria County Comprehensive Plan update. Andrew, do you have something on that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a presentation today. Ms. Sarah Kelly with Planning Next is our consultant on this project. She's driven in today from Cleveland, Ohio to share our progress thus far. Columbus, Ohio, my apologies, not the same. She's driven in from Columbus, Ohio to share the progress. Tonight we kick off phase 2 of our project, and so we're excited to start that public engagement. And so Sarah has a brief slideshow, and then if any questions that the board may have, we're happy to answer those.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much, Andrew. I will not take a lot of your time, but I am here this week because we are entering a really exciting new phase of our work. I know that Andrew has been keeping you up to speed on all the work that we've been doing, and we're so grateful for the opportunity to work with the county and with Tri-County and many others on this effort. So I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. Happy to share the deck, and also there will be some new information on the website tomorrow morning if you'd like to take a deeper dive. So let's try to advance the slide for starters. Oh, it would help if I turned it on. Yeah. Okay, great. So a few things I want to do, just a brief overview of what we've done so far through our process, a little bit about the future character and land use map we've been developing. I think you got a preview of that last month. And then I want to talk about where we are with our vision and goals and the key actions that we've started to develop for the plan. Emphasis on the word started. We are very much in a draft state right now, and that's why we want to make sure that we're keeping you up to speed and giving you the opportunity to share your comments. And then we are launching our next and final round of public engagement really this evening, and so just want to be sure you have the information about that, and then we'll talk briefly about some next steps. So what have we done so far? We've been through a preparation phase and an analysis phase of our work. Our technical work has really been focused on how land is used in the county and how it may be used in the future. But of course, there's a strong relationship between land use and many other things that this plan will address, having to do with transportation and parks and open space and community amenities and employment and many other topics. Concurrently with our technical work, we've been managing a public engagement process, and it's been really important to us that we're taking what we hear from the community, making sure that informs our analysis, and then turn that our analysis can shape the direction for the plan. So we've had one round already. I'll tell you a little bit more about that, and then now we are getting into the second round, which is really kind of the testing phase. The first time we went out to the public was really about, what do you think? Very open-ended, big picture questions, but we need to make sure this is a focused and implementable plan. So now we have some concrete ideas that we're going out and asking people for their thoughts on, and then we'll be wrapping up the work over the next couple months. We've done a lot of communication and outreach to try to make sure people are aware of the process, mostly trying to leverage existing organizations and networks and using a lot of word of mouth. We know that people are most likely to get involved if someone they know and trust asks them to do so. So we've really relied on different organizations throughout the county, and tried to make it really accessible and easy for people. So as we did we have a website. This is kind of our main hub of information at Peoria County 200 plus. You have to spell out PLUS .com and .org. This is where you can get news on what's happening, and also where you can take surveys, one of which is going to be launching tomorrow. Our first round of engagement, we heard from hundreds of folks. We were out. This is a photo from the Bicentennial. Really tried to be out where people were, different events, but not just in the city of Peoria. Definitely getting out in the county, trying to be sure that it was easy for people to participate. A lot of different activities we had people do about what they're optimistic about, what they're concerned about, what they want to see for outcomes of the plan, areas where they could see improvement in the county. And then we mimicked that in-person engagement online and tried to really make sure that anyone who couldn't be out in person was able to go on our website. At the same time, we were developing some conditions and trends. This is just a couple of snapshots. So, really making sure we weren't just it's just not sort of a data dump of anything and everything we could find, but really focusing our analysis on some of the trends that we think are most impacting the county. So the fact that you have both a much younger cohort under the age of 18 and then an older cohort over the age of the 65 where the population is growing the most, right? That has implications for what kind of housing you want to have in the county, what kind of services and amenities you want to have in the county. Similarly, looking at things like commuting patterns. There are a lot of folks that come into Peoria County to work but don't live here, and a lot of folks that live here but work somewhere else. So all of these kinds of trends are things that we have looked at in order to get a sense of where the county is today. We're not starting from scratch here. It was really important for us to be pulling from the other plans and studies that have been done across the county, and there is a lot of good work that has already happened here. So we started with an assessment and audit of the previous plan, but really making sure we're looking at local community plans and other plans and bringing that work into our analysis. Andrew may have shared this with you already. One of the outputs of this work has been an existing land use map of the county. Believe it or not, there was not an existing GIS-based map of how land is used today in the county. So now we have that. That was a really important starting point for our analysis, and staff gets a lot of credit for doing some of the hard work to make sure it was accurate. We were able to pull this together. A lot of different ways we're looking at how land is used today. I'm sure it's not a surprise to all of you that high percentage of agriculture, which had many implications for how we pursued the work. Once we had some of the existing conditions analysis underway, but before we started really drafting the analysis, and we just kind of had our first shot at what we thought the future land use map might look like, we brought together some focus groups. This was at the end of February, and we focused them around key types of land use. We had a group that was focused on agriculture, one that was focused on employment centers, one that was focused on neighborhoods, so villages and towns and neighborhoods, and one that was focused on open space and conservation. And in each of these focus groups, we had multiple tables where we posed some key questions about we invited folks to have specific expertise in these topics. So, what does it mean to you, for example, to have to make sure that our employment, the areas where we want to have employment generating uses are really ready for the kind of investment that you want? What is it going to take? Excuse me. Similarly, with these other topics, we had some focus questions, and we got some really, really great feedback over the course of several days. Excuse me, of course, that happens. So we are now at a point where we have a draft future character and land use map, and we are going to be soliciting feedback on that both in person and online. We started with some higher level principles and that existing land use, future land use, and then really trying to consider not only how land is used, but the character, the look and feel, the built environment, so that this plan is going to do more than just delineate how land might be used in the future, but will hopefully give a clearer picture of what kinds of places you might hope to have 10, 15 years or more in terms of how they're experienced by the public. So we're kind of trying to go that extra step, that extra mile, to give you more through this plan that's going to hopefully really help the county to make decisions about future investment, future development, and what you do and don't want to see. I'm just sharing a few. There are a lot of principles that we've kind of been able to put together, but here are a few of the highlights. Thought you might be curious. Agricultural preservation, very much a priority, but conditions are changing, right? There are different types of uses that are being proposed in agricultural areas. The agricultural industry has changed significantly, not only here in the county, but nationally, and our plan's trying to recognize that. These employment generating uses, that have been a big focus for us. It's really important that we're clear through this plan about what needs to happen to try to attract the uses you want, whether it's infrastructure, utilities, transportation, other adjacent land uses, and sort of how you think about those. We really tried to be deliberate about how we're describing those areas to put the county in the best position possible to attract what you're looking for. Thinking about the smaller communities in the county, the fact that you have a small town character, and that is one of the biggest things that we heard time and time again from people that make them love the places where they live here today. But there's an opportunity to capitalize on that more. And how do we make sure that these smaller communities where you have that kind of village character are everything that they possibly could be? So you're going to see in this plan some proposals for how to strengthen what you already have there. Thinking about the river as an asset to be capitalized, not just in terms of for employment uses, which you will always, you continue to have some of those, but also as an amenity and a resource, and really thinking about city-county coordination. This is a plan just for the unincorporated parts of the county, but that compatibility and that coordination is really critical to our work. I mentioned that we're looking at character, not just land use. So, a traditional plan would separate out land uses in a way that would be more more piecemeal to some degree. And what we're going to really do is try to give more information about how you think properties should be treated in the future, the form of the building, the qualities of each of the places. That's going to allow you, when you're considering something new, a development proposal or something else that you're trying to decide if it fits in this county. You're hopefully going to have more information to go on besides just is the use right, but is it the type of intervention, the type of change that's going to help these places to be what you really want them to be. So we have this draft future character and land use map. A few things I will just highlight for you. This plan still maintains a very, very large proportion of the county as some type of rural character. But what we've done is we've tried to be specific about the fact that you do have changing conditions already. And so this plan is a chance to recognize that rural isn't the same everywhere that you are in the county. There are some places where you have more of a mix of uses, whether it's a mix of housing, mix of commercial, or other things. There's some areas where you have a more strictly kind of agricultural feel. And so we tried through this plan to distinguish between some of these types that will hopefully help guide in the future. A few of the other things that I would emphasize is, in these employment centers, we really tried to think of areas where you already may have some traction, where there already may be some infrastructure, where there's already been some interested investment, but then to try to describe what can be done to continue to help these areas to evolve into the kind of places that are going to generate jobs, that are going to bring revenue, that are going to have the kind of economic impact that you would hope for. We have also spent quite a bit of time focusing on these sort of village and rural center areas. Again, going hand in hand with this principle that if Peoria County is going to be a place that is going to retain and attract residents, one of the what we've been hearing from folks and what we believe through our analysis, one of the most important things that you can do is to strengthen those centers and make sure that they have the qualities that people are looking for, whether it's the types of housing they want, whether it's the public realm, and that the county is really working closely with the villages that are incorporated, and then in the areas that are not incorporated, really trying to lead the way in terms of how to shape them as they evolve over time. So you'll see as we work through our plan, eventually we're going to have all these character types described and delineated. We're really big on using imagery to try to depict what we want these types to be. In the future, all of this, by the way, is going up online tomorrow morning, so you'll have a chance to dive in, and all very much as draft. So finally, just share a couple additional things. We do have a vision statement we've begun to draft for the plan. This is kind of the highest level. It's about strengthening the economy, elevating agricultural environmental assets, and fostering a high quality of place. And then we have 4 goals that we've begun to develop on land use and character, rural conservation, infrastructure, natural environment, and open space. I will mention, you probably know that concurrently there is an economic development strategy that's underway. This plan will not have detailed recommendations relating to economic development, but it will lay the foundation for that plan, which will have that greater depth. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to read through all these, but want you to know that under each of these goals, what we've started to do is develop some concrete policies, projects that are going to be hopefully implementable and specific. We want this to be an aspirational plan, but we want to make sure you have recommendations that can be implemented. So there are recommendations about things like updating zoning, assisting individual jurisdictions with their own planning, helping to prepare these employment centers for investment. Under rural conservation, revising subdivision regulations to help with this idea of, being clear about where you want to conserve and where you want to allow housing and other types of development. Again, reviewing the zoning code to support things like agritourism, reassessing what farmland is most susceptible to development, and finding ways to make sure that priority agricultural areas are preserved. Relating to infrastructure, making sure water and sewer capacity is sufficient to support the kind of uses that we're putting forth in this plan. Coordinating with utility providers, focus on broadband and fiber, big topic from the public. Expanding fixed route transportation, advocating for funding for passenger rail between Peoria and Chicago, effort that's already underway that this plan could reinforce. Finally, pertains to the natural environment, some of the key recommendations around some more coordinated parks and recreation master planning, thinking about buffers between natural areas and having some real strategies in the plan for how to pursue that buffering, identifying funding mechanisms for some of the things you want, recommendation around litter prevention, and around updating the environmental corridor map, which is something that exists but is not up to date and would really benefit the county in terms of being able to determine priority preservation areas. So those are just some highlights. Those are some things we're starting to test with the public. None of this is set in stone yet. It's all under development. But what we're going to be doing over the next 2 months is to get out and be asking folks what they think about the future land use map. We're going to have 10 open houses scheduled throughout the county where we'll be out and people can come and look at materials at their own pace. Then these boards are going to be on display throughout the county. If you have an idea of where they should be for some period, please let us know. We really want to get them out, every corner of the county. And then this will all be online. And so people who don't get out to one of these locations are able to go online. So if you can help us, we would love the assistance in spreading the word. Again, starting tomorrow, people will be able to go online. They'll be able to, there's a calendar of the events of where we're going to be over the next 2 months. And people will be able to check that and go wherever is most convenient for them. So we hope that you will tell anyone and everyone who cares about the future of the county how they can participate and continue to shape this plan as we start to develop it. I will just finally say, as we move into June and July, we will be drafting, the plan documents. So we'll be keeping you up to speed and asking for your input as we go through that final stage of the process as well. So we're really excited about this. We've had, just wonderful participation from all sorts of folks throughout the county, a lot of positivity, a lot of constructive ideas. And I think you're going to have a plan that's really going to set you on a really good path over the next decade or more, and that staff and others are ready to roll up their sleeves and work on and try to implement. So grateful for your time. Happy to answer any questions if you have them right now as well.
Any questions? Terry?
Just quickly, can we get the link emailed to us for tomorrow morning?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
So much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on to zoning cases. Zoning case number ZBA-2026-0010, petition of Peoria County. Can I have a motion to put that on the floor? Sharon, Jimmy, okay, Andrew?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Zoning case ZBA 2026-0010 is the petition of Peoria County. This is a text amendment to Chapter 20, which includes Article 3, Section 3.2 building permits, Section 3.5 special use permits, Article 7, Section 7.2 commercial wind energy facilities, Section 7.17 solar energy generation facilities, Article 11, Section 11.1 definitions, and Appendix A fee schedule of the Peoria County Code. This amendment follows the passing of the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act by the state of Illinois, which was signed into law as Public Act 104-0458 by the governor on January 8, 2026. Similar to previous amendments we've seen to the wind and solar ordinances, we will need to update the Peoria County Code to reflect the new state requirements by no later than June 1st, 2026, in order to retain local siting control on commercial wind energy facilities and commercial solar energy facilities. Staff, with consultation from our outside counsel, joined by Andy Kite with Kyle Royster, utilized the state model ordinance drafted by the Illinois Association of County Board Members. You may notice that within your packet, the petition originally filed by the Department of Planning and Zoning is not the version that you see today. The proposed amendments consider and incorporate comments submitted from the public and private sector in the days leading up to and presented at the Zoning Board of Appeals. The agenda brief that's included in your packet attempts to spell out those 11 specific amendments introduced and recommended for approval at the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing that further clarify the proposed amendments and demonstrate the county's good faith effort to work with all interested parties. Some of the key amendments include provisions for costs which are incurred as part of the hearing, authorization of the use of a hearing facilitator. There's a caveat regarding the hearing factors, which may or may not be utilized depending on the outcome of a decision by the appellate court. It expands the emergency responders review. It creates a process for complaint resolution, and it clarifies and specifies various reports, analyses, and reviews. These are sections where we really got into the nuts and bolts of what is required. In some cases, we got very specific as to who and what is required. And then based off of some of the conversations at the Zoning Board of Appeals, we actually relaxed some of those specifications to something more general so that we don't back ourselves into a corner. What might be a best practice in 2025 may not be a best practice if and when these sites are developed in, let's say 28, 29. So we don't want to be overly specific on some of those reports. And that was some of the feedback that we heard from the developer. I would like to note that there was a letter drafted by Apex Energy and distributed to members of the county board that was received after the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. And so it has not been considered in the packet in front of you because it was not included in the ZBA testimony. However, we did conduct a review and found that it was very similar to those concerns that were outlined by Four Creeks Wind, which have been incorporated into the document. Once again, I'm here to answer any questions, and I have Andy in attendance as well if there's any technical questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Do we have any questions? Terry?
Andrew, are there any fees this is a long document. There's a lot of numbers in it. Are there any fees in here that we have increased that are not a result of compliance to the state mandate?
Sure. So the state has actually stepped in and regularized the fee schedule for solar and wind. Previously, it was at the discretion of an individual community, and essentially you could, as long as you could substantiate the cost, that's what you could charge. So the state has gone to a per megawatt model for solar and for wind. For example, we might see a solar farm filed with Peoria County. That filing fee may be, $1,500 or so. Based on the new language, that per megawatt fee could reach a maximum of $125,000. For reference, on a wind case, such as the one that we anticipate might be coming up, under the current model, the filing fee would be upwards of $200,000 based on the sheer amount of acres involved, because that's our current formula. That again will be capped out at $125,000. So those funds would then be deposited into a very specific account, and then that account would be drawn down throughout the process as we have attorney's fees, as we have moderator fees, as we potentially have venue fees. And so any and all expenses related to the hearing would then be deducted from that initial filing. And so that's one of the substantial changes that has been made. So in some cases, yes, the fees have gone up. In other cases, the fees potentially could be going down. But it's regulated at the state level now per megawatt, similar to how these are taxed.
To follow up, based on what you know now, is the state mandated fee structure, does it generate more income in your department than what it would have been had they not done this? Had we not been here?
For solar, yes. We've yet to file a wind case. So based on the projection as to what that filing fee would have been, it would be lower for wind, but it is definitely higher for solar.
So it seems appropriate to suggest that we would go through the process that we routinely use to determine how a department in the courthouse generates its fees and how it pays for the services rendered. This looks like it will likely increase the amount of fees paid into your department. And I'm simply suggesting that we would look at places, if that's true. These departments have not typically been a profit center for the county, but they could become that. And if that's true, it would be economically feasible and probably helpful to the local economy if we were able to lower some of our in-house permit fees for things like residential construction, ag construction, commercial projects, where this boom of solar and wind could support your department after being on the backs of the taxpayers for so long. I just think we ought to look at this as an opportunity to maybe take a little load off of our residents. So that's not to tell you what to do. It's simply to plant the seed that this is an opportunity for us.
And I'll follow up with last year, solar energy generation facilities really carried the bulk of the permitting revenue for the Department of Planning and Zoning, and that was before any type of fee modification.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Andrew?
Chairman Rosenbaum, since we have our attorney here and the attorney representing one of the wind farms, if there is a public comment, I would say, could we move that to where maybe they could address the board during the actual issue instead of after the vote?
That'd be fun. I think it's better to do it while we're talking about it than afterwards. So either one of you would like to speak now, that's great.
Good afternoon. My name is Seth Upoff. I'm an attorney here in Peoria. Business address is 4812 North Prospect Road, Peoria Heights, Illinois. And I'm here on behalf of Four Creeks Wind. And we, first of all, wanted to thank Andrew and the county staff for a lot of hard work on the text amendment. A lot of work that went into trying to incorporate all this and put it into your code. The only reason that I wanted to make a comment today was in terms of the effective date of this ordinance. So typically, I think your effective date when you pass ordinances just tends to be the day the board votes on it or the following day whenever it gets signed. But you can, I believe, under the law, I believe you're permitted to set the date of when it would become effective. And the rest of the state, or at least the state law that's mandating these changes, goes into effect June 1st. And so we would ask you to consider making an effective date of June 1st for your ordinance, so that it lines up with the state law and would be consistent in those terms. From our standpoint, it just allows some consistency for planning on some of the things that we're doing moving forward, and also in terms of trying to iron out some of the other requirements that we have to have submitted before we make an application. So that's the request, is just a June 1st effective date.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, I would just ask staff, is that you're only talking about a 2-week difference? Is that an issue for Andrew or Mr. Kite or Mr. Sorrell or our attorney if we set an effective date of June 1st on the legislation?
From a legal perspective, it doesn't have an impact to the county. The only wild card to that is if there's some application that would get filed within that two-week period. But that would be very unusual for that to happen, probably. But I would defer to Andrew on that from a practical standpoint.
I think I would be indifferent. There's other conditions that are within the Public Act that come into effect on June 1st that have nothing to do with this ordinance. So I can understand the position of the board.
Okay.
So, Mr. Ruland had a question.
My concern here is whether or not Four Creeks intends to file an application prior to that point. We go with the current application fees and then get stuck with the state application fees. I would want the state's attorney's office to advise us on whether there's any risk that the state would determine that they were simply trying to beat that date with their application. I'm not accusing them of that. I'm just saying when the application date and the effective date are that close together, it might be assumed by the state that we were just trying to get it in under the wire. And I don't know if that's a threat to us or not.
Thank you. I will let Mr. Kite and Andrew field this more specifically, but I do believe the application fees will go down for them after June 1. So filing before June 1 would not monetarily necessarily be in their interest, but I can have Mr. Kite go into any other considerations that might differ in that 2-week span, other than the fees.
Sorry about that. I don't think there's any advantage to them applying beforehand from that standpoint, other than they've just filed it ahead of time. But I don't think right now they're in that position that they can even do that. But I think Mr. Upoff had some comment on it because I feel him lurking behind me. So I'll defer to Seth if he had some further.
She's correct that there's no advantage for us to file early because your application fees for a wind project are currently higher than they would be under the state ordinance or the state mandates. So you imposing the state mandates earlier actually lowers your fees earlier. I don't believe that even if the company wanted to try to file before June 1st, I suppose there's an outside chance that they could. But at this point, being that close, it would actually be more expensive for them to do so than to wait for June 1st. So whether it's May 14th or June 1st, I don't think is going to have any impact on the fees for you. In fact, it would lower your fee threshold sooner than if you made it June 1st.
Then what's the advantage of us holding off to June 1st? I mean, what is the difference going to make for your company when you know you're going to have to be doing everything according to these fees that or the structure that we're going to be putting in? Why would you want us to hold off till June 1st instead of just going ahead and implementing them right away?
As Mr. Braun sort of alluded to, there are other mandates in the Public Act that are going to have implications for wind projects and wind generation, and all of those are going to go into place June 1st. And so if you did it early, it kind of creates this gray zone for 2 weeks where if we did happen to apply during that time period, which of the mandates are in place, which of the mandates are not. Your statute imposes a number of them, but maybe not all of them. It just creates sort of a gray area of uncertainty as to certain things, which would be more clear for everybody, both parties, both on the government side and the applicant side, if it aligned with the state mandate on June 1st. So there's no huge advantage to us necessarily other than clarity. And, there's some ongoing negotiations right now with other agencies, and this potential area of uncertainty complicates those discussions further. So having the clarity of knowing Peoria's law will change at the same time as the state's law would provide all the parties that are negotiating those right now to have clarity on when certain things are going to go into place.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to amend with a June 1st start date for the legislation.
Any other questions on this? Okay. Yeah, we'll give you a minute. Any other comments from board members on this amendment? Sorry, we're going to do a voice vote.
It's on mine. It's on here. Yeah. 4.2 amendment is listed on the screen.
So how do you want me to do this? A voice vote or go ahead and do it? Okay. We're going to vote for the amendment, and that would make this applicable on June 1st instead of right after our, pardon? 4.2. Yeah. The 4.2 amendment, and this will make it so what we're voting on today will be legal on June 1st instead of right after our board meeting. Are there any questions before we vote? Okay, please vote. Okay, that passed with the unanimous vote. Now we have to vote the regular amendment, or the regular
So you'll be voting on the motion, the petition as amended.
So that's a 4.1 zoning case, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Before we vote, any questions before we vote? Okay, please vote. We got everybody? Okay, passed unanimously. Okay, we'll go on to resolutions now. 5.1, amendment to Appendix A, Building Permit Fee Schedule, Chapter 12 Building and Property Maintenance Code. Can I have a motion to put that on the floor? Jimmy? Phil for a second. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This effectively is part two. This effectively is part two of the amendments. Chapter 12, the Building and Property Maintenance Code, addresses building permit fees, whereas the previous amendment was to Chapter 20, which was exclusive to the zoning regulations and the zoning fees. So this is going to be an amendment to keep the building permit fees in line with the regulations the state has brought forward. To maybe follow up on Member Ruin's previous comment, this does reduce building permit fees significantly.
Okay, are there any questions for Andrew? Okay, please vote. Okay, looks like it passed unanimously. We're up to public comment. Is there any public comment today? Okay, thanks. No public comment. Anything for miscellaneous? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.